I'm still fighting for peace. I've seen before now. I'm still fighting for peace. I've seen before now. I'm still fighting for peace. I've seen before now.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night. Today I am joined by the lovely Stephanie Duley. She is the author of the Bond of Fate series, and the current book that's out right now that you can read on Kindle Unlimited, I believe it's available on Kindle Unlimited right now, is A Bond of Fate. And then the next book that is going to be coming out sometime next year will be A Bond of Choice. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, I loved the story. I actually read the first one as an ARC reader, and I fell in love with it. Like, it was so good. I loved the love triangle. I loved all of the like banter. Oh, the ending. Oh,
I loved writing, and that's not the original ending. I originally did not have a love triangle planned, but as I wrote it more and more, I started falling in love with Jax. And I was like, oh no, I love them both. Maybe Evie should have feelings for both. And so that's how the love triangle formed.
Oh, that's awesome. So does writing energize you or does it exhaust you?
I think it does both. It kind of depends on the day. Like some days it kind of feels like a chore when I'm just exhausted. I've had work all day. I've got kids going on. I've got dogs. And then it's like when I finally have my time at the end of the day, I'm like, my creativity is at zero, but I'm like, I've got to write something. I've got to, do a little bit. And that's kind of when it's exhausting for me. But most of the time I just love, like, I get lost in it and I just start writing, and before I know it, it's been like 3 hours and I'm like, oh, I should probably go to bed now because I've got to get up for work. So mostly it's very energizing. I love it. It's my escape. But there's days where you're just tired and you just kind of plod along and get whatever you can done.
Yeah. So when do you find, like, how do you find time to write?
So most of my writing time is when the kids are in bed. But sometimes there might be like a lunch break I have at work where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to write because I've got all this stuff in my head. It helps a lot too. My daughter goes and visits her dad for a month in the summer. And so we kind of have less stuff going on. So I get a lot of writing done, usually in July. But most of the time it's just whenever I can find the time.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. So, what's like your writing kryptonite that will, thwart all your writing plans? Like, what is something that will set you off?
Thwarting my writing. Usually it's kid related. Somebody's sick. Somebody needs something. Somebody woke up 5 times the night before because they were having bad dreams and I'm just on empty. But on it, like, if there's a good book that's coming out that I've been waiting for, I will read that but that kind of gets my creative juices flowing. So I don't feel too bad about settling into a book when I should be writing. Or, for me, it's such a great time to be a Star Wars fan because there's just so much new Star Wars stuff coming out. So if there's new Star Wars shows, you can believe I'll be there watching that instead of writing.
That's great. Well, you need your break from it because then otherwise it becomes like a daunting task. And you probably can write yourself into a corner if you're pushing it.
And then there's days where I'm just writing and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, this conversation shouldn't be happening. This should be going on somewhere else. Like, these people shouldn't be talking about, like, I just kind of ride into the corner, like you said. And I'm like, okay, we're going to take a break. We're going to step away because we're not doing good quality here.
So, what is something that you do when you have like a writer's block other than, taking a break and reading? Is there anything else that you do? Do you like go outside in nature?
Yeah, honestly, getting outside is huge. Like, because I'm inside all day at work, and then it's when I'm writing, I'm usually inside because if I take my laptop outside, my dogs think that it's time to play and then they're just in my face. So getting outside and going for a walk is a really good way to clear my head. Or honestly, I love just getting on Pinterest and I'll type in like writing prompts or writing quotes and I just read through a bunch and it'll like kind of spark some dialogue in my head based on, the little quotes here and there that I see on Pinterest. That's been huge for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a good idea to start getting your creative juices going to do the writing prompts and things like that. That's the first I've heard about that. That's really cool. That's very cool. So what would you say to your younger self now that you have, one book under your belt, you're working on the second one? What is something you would tell your younger writing self?
Just do it. Just
now
do it. Like, don't
do
worry about who's going to love it, who's going to hate it. Don't worry about, because honestly, right now, because I'm self-published, I just put it on Amazon. And my whole thing is, I just want to share my stories with people. I don't care if I've got some major publishing company that's published me. I just want to share the stories. And I think if I would have had that mindset when I was younger, I would have a lot more books out by now.
Yeah. The self-doubt and like the insecurity of that. Yeah. Well, that's really good advice. I think that it's good that you did it. I loved the story. Like, it was really, really good. I'm really so glad enjoyed you enjoyed it. The characters, they are just so well written, and like the banter is the best.
That's my favorite part.
I love
it. And I just love how like Evie is she's just so sassy about everything, and she just thinks that she can take care of everything herself and she doesn't really need any help, but like that's in her real world where there's not supernatural things going on. And then you've got Liam, who's just so safe, and let's make sure we're doing everything by the book because I'm like a big alpha now and in charge and I don't want to screw things up. And then Jax is just so laid back and like, whatever, let's just go for things. It was like them interacting, all three of them, was so fun to write.
And I have a soft spot for Evie because my daughter is actually named Evelyn, but she goes by Evie, and she reminds me a lot of her. I love
that name. It's beautiful. That's so good.
Yes, I loved how she was, a confident little spitfire. And then she's like, oh, wait. And I just see so much of my daughter in that character. So I really loved reading that character. It was so funny.
That's so great.
So, yeah, I love the book. It's a really good book. So what is some other advice you would give, like, for a new author besides, like, with the process, I guess, maybe doing it on your own?
Oh my gosh, don't get caught up in everything has to be perfect. Because I think a lot of the, like, length of time that I spent on my book could have been cut in half if I would have just wrote it all out and then sent it off for editing and have somebody who knows what they're doing, who knows story structure, who knows the ins and out of like what readers are looking for. Just have them clean it up because they'll help you tell your story. But I think me especially, I got so caught up in this has to be perfect when I send it for somebody to look at because I don't want them to think I don't know what I'm doing and I got to make sure that I get it all right. You're not going to have it right. Because I thought mine was perfect and I still had so many things that needed to be tweaked and changed. So don't get caught up in your first draft has to be perfect because it never will be. And like even now, what I've published, I'm like, oh, I really should have wrote that here. Maybe I should have swapped these scenes and this person should have done that. So it's never going to be perfect even after you publish it. So don't go into the writing process thinking it's going to be this amazing masterpiece right off the bat.
Yeah. Did you get a copy of your book, like a hard copy when you published it?
I did.
How did that feel? How did that feel?
Oh my gosh, it was so surreal because I have it, in my writing software. So I see how many pages it's going to be when it's formatted. But holding it in your hands, you're like, oh my gosh, I wrote all of this. Like, this is my story. It was so surreal. And like even my best friend who's been with me since the very beginning when I was just writing the book and sending her chapter at a time for fun. I had no plans to publish it. It was just something fun we were doing back and forth. She was like, I can't believe I'm holding this book. It's like, it's a real book. I was like, I know. It was so surreal.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, since your book has a lot of mythical creatures, if you had to pick one to be, what would you pick?
Oh my gosh. Well, I know in my book, vampires are evil. I would still be a vampire though. Like one of my favorite TV shows is Vampire Diaries. I see no downside to being, the immortality might get annoying because you're like, okay, well, I can only make immortal friends and how much can we do? But I don't see any
Yeah.
down. You're fast, you've got super speed, you're super sight, like I don't know. You're invincible, you can't really get hurt. So I would be a vampire for sure.
Nice. That's really good. So in the modern world then, what would you consider your spirit animal to be?
Oh,
Do you have
okay.
a
So
one that you identify
I've
with?
told people this so many times. So I'm like a little lizard. If I could just get out in the sun and just lay on a rock and just be under the sun, that would be the dream life. So I really think my spirit animal is a lizard. I need that warmth. I hate winter.
Nice.
Summer is my favorite, even though it's like 100 plus here in Texas in the summer. That's my season. That's when I thrive. So I'm pretty sure my spirit
I'm right there with you. That's great. I'm totally there with you. I'm from Arizona originally, and I'm out in California now, and it's like cold. I'm
Oh
like always
yeah.
cold. I'm like, I need a sweater. I need a blanket.
Oh, I love that.
So, so that's definitely a good animal to just lay in the sun and bask
Yeah.
in the sun.
Yeah.
So, what was the most difficult thing about writing the opposite sex for you?
That's a really good question. I think it was really like the feelings, like I guess the love aspect of things and like the physical attraction part of it. Because like as a woman, I know what I'm attracted to to a male. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
like well for me as a woman I know what I like and how I view people physically, but I guess for a man I was worried that it was super different. And so I asked my husband a lot, like, what are things that you notice about women or the sex that you're attracted to, or what are things that turn you on? And like I feel so bad, I got so graphic with him, like to the point where I was like, what do these things feel like for you? Because I know what they feel like for me, but what do they feel like for you? And he was like, what? And I was like, it's for research. Just let me have this. Please just tell me. So I think that was the most difficult, was like the physical intimacy part of it and like the love and attraction. Because I do personally think that women and men process and feel emotions differently. And so I wanted to make sure I got that right. So I mean, I asked a lot of questions to my husband. I'm sure he thinks I'm nuts anyways, but he loves me for it. So, but yeah, that was
Well, that's
challenging.
okay. That's a perfect
Yeah,
person. That's definitely the perfect person to ask because
exactly.
he's there for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's great. That's really funny. He's like, what are you asking me these questions
He's
for?
like, why do you need to know this? And I remember there was at one point where I was writing the intimate scene and I'd written something in there. I don't want to get too detailed and too into it, but my friend texted me and she's like, you need to change this because all I can think of is like a cat's tongue. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to change that. I'm so sorry. So yeah, that was tricky.
So what is one of the harder scenes for you to write? Like, is it, like more of the fighting scenes or the emotional scenes? Like, what's a difficult scene to
I
write for
really
you?
like writing the fighting scenes was hard because I can see it in my head, but it's really hard for me to pick out the words to describe it. Really, kind of any scenes where I'm describing and I'm trying to do more of the show not tell when people are making certain movements, not even just fighting, like if somebody just sits in the chair and shrugs or does a certain facial expression. That was, I had to do a lot of research, and again Pinterest helped me a lot, like how do you describe this facial expression? And it like I went through a whole list of different facial expressions. And then the fighting, I had to look up certain words because I was like, I don't know how to tell fighting. I know how to see it, but I don't know how to tell or show the fight scene. So that was challenging.
So on the flip side of that, what's your favorite scene to write?
Well, hmm. Any scenes where Liam and Evie are just being sassy to each other, I love writing that because I'm such a sarcastic person in real life, so I like when characters are like that. So I love writing those scenes. I think my favorite scene in this book to write, I really liked. Oh, there's so many. That's a hard one to choose. I kind of liked the scene where Liam kind of, when he tells Evie, what happened at the O'Connor Manor and kind of like shocks her straight because she's being all cocky. And he's like, you have no idea what you're doing. You could blow this place up. Please relax. And she's like, I'm fine. I'm going to do whatever I want. And he kind of like sets her straight. I liked writing that because it was like, listen, girl, you've got to chill out. And it was like her reality check. And then in the very next chapter, Liam's like, oh my God, I feel terrible for doing that. So you kind of see that he's a little remorseful, but he's like, I didn't know what to do. So I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are both good scenes. I liked them. So what inspired you to write this book? I heard you talking about your friend and you were doing it kind of as fun, but was there anything that you were like, I want to write this story? Like this popped into my head and I want to
Yeah,
write
so it's
this. Is
crazy.
there
I
anything like
had a
that?
dream about the scene with Evie and the car crash. Like I had a dream where the car crash played out. And like in the dream it was I mean it was me in the dream. I had this car crash, I got kidnapped. It turned out to be some werewolf compound and they had this whole military setup and that was the extent of the dream. And so I just kind of took that. I was like, this would be a really fun story to write. So I just took that little nugget and kind of expanded it out. And at the time, I was just writing little bits here. I literally would like, when I was, because my daughter at the time was 2. So I put her to bed after a long day with a toddler. I would take a hot bath and I would just sit there on my phone and type it out. And like, I just sent chapter by chapter to my friend. And eventually she's like, you should probably do something with this. It's really good. It's like, okay. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm not even going to shop it to publishers. I'm just going to put it on Amazon, see what happens.
That's awesome. That's really wonderful. So what is, have you always wanted to be a writer or was there someone that inspired you to write or is it just out of the blue you were just like, I want to
I've
write today?
always, from the time that I like learned how to write, I've always written like little short stories and like, you know, the A is for apple, B is for ball. Like I would just, when I was, I guess, first or second grade, I would make books like that and give them to my grandma. And just,
Mhm.
I had so many of them. And I would do like animals or objects or sports or people. And I'd do the thing and I would write all the pictures out or draw the pictures out. So from a young age, I've always been writing and I was always very good at writing in school, like English and, like anytime we had state tests where it was writing, I always got the highest grade on those. I enjoy it because I see the story in my head and I just want to write it out. And for me personally, I think that I communicate better when I write things out versus when
Mhm.
I'm talking one on one with people. I think I can take my time and be a little more clear with what I want to say. So I love writing. I love it so much.
That's awesome. So what's your writing process? Do you just sit down and write or do you do an outline
Well,
or?
with with this series, well, for book 2 and book 3, I have outlines for those. But for this book, I just made it up as I went along, which got frustrating towards the editing part because then I would catch things and say like this doesn't work in this part in the beginning because now these people are doing this at the end. So that was frustrating during editing and I will not ever write a book again without an outline. So it started out just writing as I went and making it up as I go, but now I take time to sit down and plot out every little thing and make sure it's got an outline so that way it's kind of a skeleton of what the book's going to be and then I just have to go in and write the dialogue.
Do you do the boards like I've seen people, they do sticky notes on a board, or do you do like the ones we learned in school where it's like, you know, this
It's
and
the
then da,
one.
da, da,
It's
da,
the ones.
da,
I
this,
would
da, da,
love
da,
to
da,
be a
da.
sticky note person because I think aesthetically that looks beautiful. But I'm gonna write the list out and fill it out as I go person, like we did in school.
Yeah, that's great. So who, I know it's hard because you did a love triangle because of the problem, but if you had to pick one of them, who would be like your ideal
Oh, it's
guy?
Liam. It's 100% Liam. I love Jax for
Liam.
all that Jax is, but Liam is just he's the guy. He's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for his character arc throughout the story and yeah, he's just I love Liam. I love Liam.
I I like, yes, I think I'm a Liam. I'm a Liam girl for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, Jax is like you said, like the laid back. He's a little bit goofy. He's not too serious, which is nice, but I'm so serious that it would probably
Right.
get on my nerves
You're like,
after
I
a
need to go
while.
to an order.
That I would be like, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So which character is most like you and why? Out of them?
Definitely Evie, but on accident. Like when I was writing her, I kind of wrote her as like when I was writing everything out, I was like, well, how would I react if I was in this situation? Because I wanted it to be very realistic. Because she has no idea that this world exists. And then all of a sudden she's just supposed to believe that magic is a thing and there's werewolves and vampires and all these kinds of creatures. And I mean, it helps that, midway through the beginning of the book, a banshee busts through the window and it's like right there for her to see. That kind of shocks her into belief. But I wanted her to be very real, I guess. And so most of the stuff that I wrote for her was, okay, but how would I react to this? If this happened to me and some psycho came up to me after I just crashed my car, how would I react to that? And then she, like, everybody that knows me really well and has read the book, they were like, oh my gosh, you're Evie. Like, you wrote yourself into this book. And I was like, well, no, an accident, but yeah.
That was a great scene though, because she's like there, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Where'd he go? He left me here, and now there's this wolf here, and this banshee's here, and it's just like that was such a great scene.
I really see. I like that writing that scene too. That was so fun. I guess I like writing all of it.
I loved all the. Well, yes, definitely, it's your book, but I think that that was a really good scene. There's so many good scenes. Yeah. There's so many good quotes too. Yeah. That you're like, oh, that's good. But I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but you seriously just read the book, add it to your TBR for sure. So what's your favorite trope to write?
I don't know. I guess it's because it's not, Evie and Liam kind of have this enemies to lover thing because they're both so, they're so resistant of each other. So, but they're not enemies per se. But I really like that, where you're like, okay, these people are never going to work out. Like, they're so argumentative. They don't look good on paper. And I like when they can make it work. So I guess it's kind of enemies to lovers, but soft enemies to lovers.
Yeah. So after this next book, so there's this book and then a third book, what's your plans after that? Are you going to keep writing in fantasy genre? Or are you going to try
I'm definitely going to stick into fantasy. I'm thinking about doing a standalone. I have so many ideas. I don't even know where to start. So I'm going to focus on these 3, get those done. And then I've got an idea for a standalone book, 2 ideas for 2 more series, but they're all fantasy based. One of the new series is not going to be based in modern day. It'll be a totally different realm and totally different races and people and stuff like that. But I've got a lot of other projects that I have all in my bank.
So are they in your head, or do you write them out somewhere so that they're not stuck in there?
Some of them are written out. Some of them are just in my head. Like, my notes app on my phone is a chaotic mess, but it's just all of my book ideas. I've got random quotes that come to mind that I'll put in there for different books. So a lot of it is written out, but some of it's just kind of in my head.
Do you ever worry you're going to forget it?
Yeah. But honestly, I try and get down as much as I can on paper. And then, because sometimes I have it's the most inconvenient timing where I'm in the middle of a meeting or something at work and I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be an amazing book. And then by the time I'm out of the meeting, because I've clocked back in and paid attention, I've forgotten what it was.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. That would be the worst. Like, when you have a good idea, hopefully it comes back to you later on.
It usually does. Some random thing will spark it, and I'm like, oh yes, and then I'll write it. That's what most of the notes in my notes app are, is just the remembering and the realization, oh, I had this idea. I should probably write it down so I don't forget again.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to another author, and she says a lot of the time that the ideas come in the most inconvenient, she's driving. Yes. And she's like, I have to hit the hey Siri, record my voice, and then have it record what she's saying, and then later on go write it down again. Because she's like, it's the most inconvenient.
Oh my gosh, I need to do that. Because it is, and I don't know if it's I'm relaxing. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, why can't I have these ideas when I sit down at my computer with my tea and my warm blanket and I'm ready to go? It's always I'm driving, I'm in a meeting, I'm cleaning my kids' crap up out of their room. It's always inconvenient.
Yes. Well, that's good. Well, it's good that you have the ability to jot it down and remember. I feel like most of the ideas that come into my head, that once I let them go, they're gone, and I don't have them anymore. So how long does it take you to write? How long did it take you to write book 1?
Well, book 1, since I wasn't super serious with it, I started writing it at the very end of 2019, and then I finished it in 2024. like, I think we did final edits in February of 2024. So it took a while, but this one I am bound and determined to get it out by next summer and this time it'll be quicker, I think, too, because I have it all outlined. So I just have to go in and basically fill everything out. But so I did recently find out that I'm pregnant and I'm due in December. Thank you.
Congratulations.
So I'm gonna have a lot of maternity time off like maternity leave to
Mhm.
kind of edit. So I'm like, okay, if I can just write, then when I'm on maternity leave, I can sit back and edit and be ready to go for the summer.
That'll be
Yeah.
great. That'll be awesome. Well,
Thank you so
congratulations.
much.
That's a fun time.
Yeah,
That's
Christmas
really great.
baby.
So, yes, yes, Christmas baby. That'll be
Yeah.
fun. Double the
Yes.
fun holiday happy
Yes.
times. That'll
Yeah.
be good. So what do you think makes a great story in your opinion?
I think when you are able to step out of your own reality when you're reading it, something that can pull you out of your world and you get so invested in the characters and you're so like the world is just built up around you and you completely just tune out of reality and you can get sucked into the story. I love that. I love when I'm reading books and I find myself like going to bed at night thinking, oh, I wonder what these characters are doing right now. Like they're not doing anything. They're characters in a book, but I'm like, oh, I bet they'd probably be getting ready for bed too. Like just silly things like that.
I'm totally the same way because it's getting you out of your own
Yeah.
life. So I totally
Yeah.
get that. That's great. So do you enjoy the character building or the world building when you write?
I think I like the character building. I like to tell people stories. The world building, I kind of had a difficult time with, which I think is why I set this story in modern day, so I didn't have to make up a whole lot. My husband is amazing at world building, and he's such a great resource because we play Dungeons and Dragons, and he's our DM, and he's made so many campaigns for us that are just his own world that he's built up. And I mean, he's got it down, like political systems, laws, different factions, like this, like he even makes his own maps. He's amazing at world building. So he's a great resource for me. But I think I was a little shy of
Yeah.
that this go around. We'll see. The next series will be, more world building. But I enjoy telling people stories. I like to show change in people because I really believe that you are here on this earth not to be one person all the way through. It's all about evolving and becoming different people and changing and adapting and just living your life fully and just being who you want to be. And that could be one thing when you're in your 20s and something totally different by the time you're in your 40s. So I guess I like a good character arc.
Oh, that's wonderful. So when you're doing Dungeons and Dragons, what's your character that you usually
Oh my gosh, I'm always
like
a
to play?
barbarian. I'm always a barbarian because they're simple. The magic is it's too much for my little ADHD brain. I can't remember a lot of stuff. So I'm like, I'm just gonna smash and bash and take all the hits, and that's fine with me.
That's great. That's really great. So with your writing, what's your process now? You said you do an outline. Is there anything else that you like methodically have to do in order to have that
Yeah,
process?
when I get my good quality writing sessions in, I'm in my room at my desk. I have headphones on and I usually just play some kind of ambiance. Like I like to get like a little cabin with rain noises playing on YouTube. I just tune out and I have nobody come bother me. Nobody's allowed to come in the room and I have hot tea going. I usually would have like a glass of whiskey, but can't do that now. But I kind of lock myself away and just be in the zone. I have to do that now because I find I get the best results that way.
That's great. That's really, really great. So what is something that there's somebody actually, what's like some of the books that you're like your go-to books that you want to read or the authors that you really like or stories that you're really drawn to?
I know this is probably a lot of people's answers, but Sarah J. Maas she got me back into reading. I used to read, so I read Hunger Games when it came out. I read Cassandra Clare's City of Bones. That series is so good. I love that. And then I kind of just went into a reading slump for a while, and then COVID hit, and I kept seeing Court of Thorns and Roses on TikTok. I was like, I guess I'll read this book. And I really enjoyed that series, but the series that really got me was the Throne of Glass series. Oh my gosh. That I will recommend that until I am old and crusty and dying. Like it's such a good book series. So I love Sarah J. Maas. I think she's very talented. I like her world building, and she really inspired me to just put my own stuff out there because I was like, I read enough of her stuff. I'm obviously not as talented as she is, but I mean, maybe one day I'll get there because, I'm very fresh. It's my first book series, but I was like, I can write like this. I can start doing this. So she was kind of influential too in me putting my stuff out there.
That's so great. Actually, it's funny. So I told you I have an Etsy
Mhm.
business, and I had a girl reach out to me, and she said, "Hey, you says on here you can make custom cards. My friend loves this series, and it's her 30th birthday. Could you make a card of this series?" And it was
Yeah.
that one. And I was like, I hadn't read in years, like
Yeah.
years, because I was a mom and I was
Yeah.
busy, not in years. And I was like, oh, sure. Well, because when I make my cards, I really want to make them like so that the person who's getting them is like, oh my gosh, this is like
Right.
totally doing it justice. That is my like business
Yeah.
model. So I was like, well, I have to read the story. I'm not going to
Right.
just like do it
Right.
half-assed. So I started reading it, and then I was like on the next book and the next book and the next book, and then I joined a book group, and they all were ARC readers.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what is this ARC reading thing
Yeah.
you're talking about? And they're like, oh, well, you read ARC, so you read books, advanced book copies for authors. And I was like,
You're
why
like,
am I
sign
not
me
doing
up right
this?
now.
And so because of yes, so because of her, I
That's
found
awesome.
you.
Wow,
So,
full circle. That's
yeah.
really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I love her. So I'm actually reading. I just started the Throne of Glass
That's so
series
good.
like
It's
2
my
weeks
favorite.
ago.
It is the main female character in there is my favorite book character of all time. Like hands down. She's written so well.
Yeah, it's so amazing that she started so young and did it, and then
I know.
published it. Kind of like you said, you had started it, and it went on for a while, and then you finally published it. So it's amazing to see how many people just hold on to their stories for so long, and they don't share it with everybody until they feel like, okay, it's time.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's really cool. Yeah, she's a great writer. She definitely can do world building. But your book is really good too.
Well,
so
thank
don't
you.
sell yourself
Thank
short.
you.
I really loved it. I really loved it. So I love shifter stories, and I love enemies to lovers and triangles, and anything with a magical creature is like my jam. I will read it.
I'm really excited for the second book too, because this kind of was just a soft intro into the world, and then this first book. The second book, it's Evie's really going to start learning more about how to work, what her purpose is, and how to work within this realm and help and do her part, and how to work with the wolves, and how the Fae, system and hierarchy is. And we're going to go back to the fairy, and we're going to spend a lot of time at the compound. So we're going to see like the differences between the Fae and the werewolves. And, it reminds me a lot of, in Lord of the Rings, how the elves and dwarves see each other. Like there's kind of a little animosity, and the Fae are going to, think that they're better, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good.
I'm excited. I'm very, very excited. So what is the most difficult part of your process with writing? Like when you're getting to the editing part, or is that more like when it's tedious?
The editing. It's the editing. Because when I've got ideas flowing, I will just throw everything out there. It's so easy to write. And then I'll go through and I'm editing, and I'm like, what were you trying to do here? This makes no sense. So, and then just trying to catch I still need to go through and edit a few things in this first copy that I didn't catch because I was editing it on my own. And so, I just need more pairs of eyes, I guess, on it. And it helped too that I had my family read it. And so they're like sending me, hey, this is wrong. You need to capitalize this. Like just little things. So yeah, editing is, it's so easy to write out everything, but when you go through it and you have to make sure everything fits, that's when it's very tedious.
What's the biggest thing that you've learned on this journey that you've taken?
Honestly, I think that the biggest thing I've learned is that it doesn't matter what other people are going to think. you just have to put it out there. And because that was a big block for me, I was so nervous that it wasn't going to be good enough. And I've read so many amazing books by, traditionally published authors, indie authors that are self-publishing. I've I had this like concept that, or this idea in my head that I'm not good enough. And I think over time, I just kind of realized, you know what? I love the story. I want to share it with everybody. So we're just going to put it out there and don't listen to the hate because you like it and that's all that matters. And I truly think if you're doing something that you love, it shines through and the right people are going to find it. And you're going to have your own little core group of people that love the story and you can all chat about it and cackle about the funny parts and grieve over the sad parts together. So that was a big thing for me, was basically just getting out of my own way was the biggest thing.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to answer some questions so we can get to know you better and learn about your fantastic series. And I look forward to it coming out next year. I cannot
It'll
wait.
be here soon, I promise.
Well, thank you for joining me today. Please hit like and subscribe and share it with a book friend so that they can find this amazing author and her stories. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.